So I'm very, very happy to give the introductory talk for this summer school. As you learned, the summer school is organized by the SECLI-FIRM project, that is a project funded by the European Union through the Research and Innovation Framework Program. And so the purpose of my talk would be to answer some very simple questions. The first one is why the European Union is investing in climate services. And the second one is what are the opportunities around for developing and deploying climate services through European funding or support. I will try to give a perspective on that, and I will start from some years ago, when we actually were trying to develop some policy agenda on climate services. So back in 2015, the European Commission issued a roadmap, a European Research and Innovation roadmap for climate services. What was the purpose? I had to say that back at the time, we were trying to develop the research priority for the upcoming work program. And we were starting to take stock of European research and innovation on climate. And we were pleased to see that in the previous decade, a lot of advancement had happened. So we were really gathering a lot of new knowledge and sound science on how the Earth system work. What are the impact of climate change? We were getting better in predict the impact, in predict the change, but still with some disappointment, we were seeing that a little part of that information was actually translating. It was actually used in making decisions, in deciding where and how to plan infrastructure, how to design emergency response plan. So we understood that there was a gap that maybe research and innovation could help to address. And the gap was really to make the knowledge on climate actionable, ready to be used, fit for purpose for the user to incorporate this knowledge in their decision. So this is, let's say, this new policy agenda that was issued with the European roadmap was really a bit of change of paradigm in our research. So we were moving really from a science-driven research to a user-driven research and science-informed one. What is the meaning of that? Simply, we didn't want to have report out of the research activities or having tools, hoping to find the users out there. So we really wanted to scientists and end users to get together to design the problem together and the possible response to these problems through climate services. And had to say that stemming from that document, from the work map, we had a number of call for proposal, and we funded a number of projects that are around 100 billion euro portfolio on climate services. And SECLI-FIRM is among these projects that are developing prototype of pre-operational or even operational climate services. And you can have a look at this project. I put the icon there in this gorgeous result pack. The reference is in this last slide, so you can navigate a bit this document. In the meantime, another important strand of investment in climate services at the EU level is, of course, through the Copernicus program. So until now, from 2015 until now, the Copernicus Climate Change Service, 3S, got operational and is providing really an authoritative free data layer for the development of climate services. I've not talked, of course, about C3S. We have Carlo Bontempo and other speakers that we will do, but of course, it is an important, very important, crucial step in this journey, climate services journey. I had to say that already back at the time, we identified as a key priority investing in building the capacity, not only the capacity of the providers of climate information and services, but also capacity at the user side. Not only at European level, but also internationally.
I'm sorry, Alessia. I'm really sorry to interrupt you. We're now sharing the presentation for you. We add some gray spots on your slide.
Okay.
So please, if you can go back to Zoom and say to us next whenever you need us to change the slide. Sorry and thank you.
My pleasure. You can go next, where I was talking about we identified back then the priorities, and capacity building was among the key priorities and key action to invest on, not only at European level, but also internationally, especially with a focus with the least developed country. You can move next. So, and from there until now, we had a new parliament, European Parliament, a new commission that made of the European Green Deal the key pillar of its policy. And what is the European Green Deal? It's not just an environmental law. It's not just a climate law. It's really a new strategy for growth at EU level. It entails, it covered a lot of sectors as a specific focus of attention. Energy, of course, is among the most prominent, and we heard Roberta explaining why earlier on. And with this document, the European Commission really set an ambitious goal. That is the one to become climate neutral by 2050. That means not only resilient to climate change, but also to get carbon neutral, so to get to net zero emission by 2050. You can move next, please. What this has to do with the climate services? A lot, I would say, in the sense that the Green Deal policy communication does not mention climate services, but it put at the core a very important point, and this is the one that you find in the box, is an extract, the very word that you can find in the communication, and that it is important to ensure that across the EU, investors, insurers, businesses, cities and citizens are able to access data and to develop instruments to integrate climate change into their risk management practices. This is nothing else than climate services, and that they're really at the core of the European Commission growth strategies, that is the European Green Deal. So I had to say that in 5 years, we were talking about climate services in a quite small circle of scientists mostly, and now it's really at the core of the Commission of the European growth strategy. So the takeaways from there is that really climate services are critical to deliver on the Green Deal, and that, of course, to make this happen, we need to build capacity. We need to build awareness on a side in citizens and recipients, but we need to build capacity in provision of services and in use of services. And you can move next. So in the between, a pandemic's happened. And of course, we learned a lot of lessons about what does it mean to be resilient, but also the European Union set aside a quite ambitious recovery plan. And the Next Generation EU program invests a lot of resources in the order of 800 billion euro, and 37% of this expenditure have to be dedicated to climate investment and reforms. Again, what does it mean for us? It means that really enormous amount of investment will be dedicated to that in the years to come. And this is really important, that this investment decision, that this action are based on the best available climate science. And this climate science is timely provided in the right format, and it is fit for purpose. As you see, climate services in a broader sense are really important for us to deliver on the goals that we set. And you can move next, please. So just to look at, so we understood that this is very important now. It's really the intelligence to make the transition happen. But I would like also to mention that the European Union has some funds, some support for the delivery and the developing of climate services. I will focus on the research and innovation program because this is the problem where I work. But there are, if we look at European Union, there are other instruments. I can mention the LIFE program, but I will also invite you to look in the structural fund at the national and regional level, where you could find resources to really to develop your climate services project. If you look at the Horizon Europe budget, it's quite an important budget. It's very complex structure. I cannot really go into detail, but if you move to the next slide, please, I can give you just an indication to focus on the cluster 5 and cluster 6 intervention area of the work program, where you will find a call for proposal and funding opportunities in the area of climate services. Of course, not all the budget that is associated to the challenges dedicated to climate services, but still you can find there some quite interesting opportunities to fund your ideas and your project around developing cloud services. Next slide, please. One other aspect of the Horizon Europe program I would like to stress is a new instrument, the Horizon Europe mission. There are 5 missions, and I'd like to focus here on Horizon Europe mission adaptation, where the overall goal is to support at least 150 European regions and communities in becoming climate resilient by 2030. And of course, climate services are one of the key tools to make this happen. We are currently developing an update of the work program. So by the end of the year, there will be the mission work program, the adaptation mission work program published with a number of calls and topics dedicated also to the development of climate services. So if this is mostly focusing on European Union, but of course, because of our global audience, I would like also that we have a very fast look at the international landscape. Next slide, please. Here I would like just to mention that Horizon Europe is open to international participants, so to organizations from outside the EU to join. So it's something to keep in mind. At EU level, and this is the research and innovation strand, of course, at EU level, we have an instrument for the development cooperation and international cooperation that allocate other funding. And of course, climate is a key priority, is a cross-cutting priority. If you want to have a look to the type of activities that are funded under this international cooperation, development cooperation, you can, for example, have a look at the CLIMSA project that is about developing a support program for climate services in the intra-ACP countries. But I would like to mention also that the European Union pledged for 4 billion more climate finance, and this is let's say a point that is will be brought at COP26, and of course to refer to WMO Global Framework for Climate Services, that of course is an entry point for capacity building and initiatives in this area. Now, if this sounds to you still a bit abstract, I would like that we take a look to the next slide, please. This is not a nice one, unfortunately, and this is is a picture taken in the occasion of the flooding that we experienced in Central Europe some months ago. Of course, there are a lot of events where you have fatalities, where you have damages. This was particularly striking because it happened at the heart of Europe, in countries that we were expecting to be more prepared to respond to such emergency. We had more than 230 people dying. We had 5 billion euros loss only of insurance assets. So the overall damages is much bigger. And of course, this is not the place where to discuss what went wrong, but I would like to mention some facts. I would say that the science was right. I mean, the forecasts were there. The alert was launched at the maximum level of alert. Still, this happened. So I would like really to stress here that climate services is beyond getting the science right, is beyond getting the figures right. We really need to translate the science into the right course of action. We need climate information to be integrated with socioeconomic information. We have to factor in climate services. This, in this case, was really the multiplier effect. And what we need professionals able to do that. And this means not only climate scientists, but people that can work at the interface between disciplines, that can really navigate through the, let's say, value chain of climate services from provision to use, people that knows the constraints of the users and know the local culture, that know what are the barriers when you have the problems, when you have to design an emergency response plan, when you have to build new energy infrastructure, when you have to pick up the right variety of crops in agriculture. So capacity building is really a challenge there, and I'm sure and happy to be there, because this summer school is really a step in this direction. And this is why I really would like to thank a lot the organizer and the teacher and speakers taking part in this, and of course the participants, most importantly, that they will be the one to make this happen and to build these professionals. So please take the most out of it, and I wish you a good continuation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alessia. That was a very important setting for the evolution of climate services in Europe and where Europe is heading. We have now time for some questions, if you'd like to take some.
Sure, with pleasure.
Thank you, Alessia. So the first question we have is related, I guess, with to the last slide you showed. Was there flood forecasting before the July 2021 flood? Maybe yeah.
Yeah, it's a very technical question, and maybe it's not the best place to reply to that one. Of course, it was the message there is that it was issued with the maximum alert level. The problem is the extreme was never touched before. So the magnitude of the event was exacerbated by climate change. And so this we had a recent study about the attribution of climate change, and it seems that of course climate change will make this type of event more frequent, with the magnitude would be really important. And of course, we have a parterre of speakers, and if you like to take this question to further elaborate, I will leave you to them.
Thank you, Alessia. So we have another similar question, which, as we said, it's more on the technical side. I would like to focus more on the next one, which says, if the project isn't funded with the funding sources you mentioned, do you know any other sources of funding for projects?
There may be multiple sources actually, and I have to say that maybe we have to stop thinking climate services as a standalone project. They may be integrated, they become a part if a national government or a regions needs to develop an adaptation plan, they maybe have funds dedicated to develop such fund, and then climate services come in as a means to that objective. So there will be, of course, projects in the sphere of research and innovation that are aiming at developing climate services, but maybe much more in the realm of adaptation or mitigation or energy or agriculture. You look at the sector where climate services can come in as one of the solutions, one of the tools. So the message is look also at national funding.
Indeed, yeah, thanks. And you also mentioned before other sources with, I don't know if your era 4CS has stopped or is continuing, for example. Still the EU funding.
Yeah, ERA 4CS is a project with a lifetime, so it's ending. There may be other funding under the JPI activities to be singled out for from climate services, but that's not a continuation as such of the area for CS.
Okay, I'm going to read out the next question.
It will help me, yeah, because we are receiving quite some, right?
Yes, yeah, and we'll go through them with you. If there's no enough clarity, we'll ask them to be expanded. But let's see. The next one is regarding the Green Deal. So sorry, also I didn't mention the names of the people who are asking questions. So starting with the next one, Ronan. So we also get to know each other. Ronan is asking, regarding the Green Deal, are there particular requirements for the data and instruments which should integrate climate risk into management practices, as described in the EGD communication quote you showed?
Yeah, the European Green Deal is a policy, so as such it doesn't give any clear, it's not even a law. So now it's been implementing with a number of regulation and law. In the slide there were some mentioned, I didn't have the time to go through. For example, now the Commission put forward the Fit for 55 packages that is regulating a number of industrial sector, for example. So we really have to go into the specific to see what are the requirements. This is a general framework. Then the best way to see what the requirements are is really to interact with the sectors and with the users and see what they need to make to meet the requirement of the Green Deal policy and implementing regulation.
Okay, thank you. Next one from Pratima, and I'll let's see if can address this one. Capacity building for emergency and response is always a question, something that I think it's requested. We mentioned about the lack of capacity here in Nepal as a developing country. How do we enhance the capacity of different stakeholders?
Yeah, $1 million question indeed. There are many ways, and of course you need a tailored program, you need a science there, you need a political will, and you need also the awareness at the citizen level. What we heard a lot also after the flooding is that people they were thinking not to be aware enough of the risk that they were running into. So there's also a lot of work in building awareness that triggers then the call for policy making to look at this and to professional to work to provide the right curriculum and schools and courses like this, of course, is much of help. And I think one thing that I like is also that this is web streamed and the material will be available. And of course, is only a small step, but initiative like that in the languages, of course, the language is another barrier that should be delivered in the languages the population you want to target and the country you want to target are part of the challenge, and we should look for this type of initiative, I'll say.
Okay, thank you, Alessia. And moving on, so I see, Bridge, you asked a question about rain, and so I suggest the more technical questions, we leave them for the more kind of core lectures of the summer school. We'll focus here more on the topic that Alessia touched on. So Dana asked, are the socioeconomic aspects a critical component when designing a climate service to receive funding? This issue is stressed in some cluster 5 calls.
Thanks for the question. Indeed, I would say that the idea behind climate services is really to integrate climate data with other type of data. and socioeconomic data are very relevant here, of course. That's why it's a core component, how it's been highlighted in some topic and in some calls. So in order to have a product that is usable, when you take decision in the real context, the climate is not the only driver. I mean, it's not the only variable you consider as a decision taker. And of course, we would need climate services that are able to really integrate in the risk management practices in the tools that the users are already using. I mean, no one will need something on top of what they are using for doing their due diligence or their standard practice. So the challenge is really to integrate the data, the climate signal into the other type of tools and practices at the user's organization. So yeah, very important.
Okay, thank you. So next one, again, is more on the technical side. Praveen will address this during the summer school with the accuracy of forecast and so on. The next one, though, is more on your court, I would say, Alessia. So Lena is asking about the climate service models. Are they available to use and maybe alter accordingly to help reach the Green Deal? So I guess it's about policy of what is developed in projects. And is that clear enough for you, Alessia?
Look, then we can ask Lena to eventually to clarify. What I understand, you want to see if there are some good practices out there, some models that we can draw upon, and you can draw upon to deliver climate services, and they are. And I guess that part of this course will be dedicated to show you. I only mentioned some resources that are more, let's say, vulgarization of what climate services are around. We have the Cordis result pack, but each of these projects that are presented there, they have a public document about best practices and lessons learned when delivering climate services. So I think that there's a lot out there, and this course could give you more specific, let's say, guidance where to find the information you would need for. If I understand the question, but if not, please give me a feedback.
Okay, Lena, if you want to maybe expand, we'll have a few seconds here if you can type fast before we move on to the next presentation. As we said, we also have other questions, but they're more on the technical side, also from live stream. So I would like to keep them for the. Thank you, Lena, for agreeing, and that was an appropriate response and question. So that's good. Maybe before we close, I'd like to ask you a question, Alessia. What if you could just to have a sense from you whether the water that the EU has poured over the climate services is getting some effect in terms of growing the plant of climate services. Can you see the buds and the plants coming? What's your view?
Yeah, I do. I would say that we saw, that's why I wanted to give this historic perspective, because really myself, I had the feeling when I start working in this field that was really for very specialized people, climate modelers and other, very exotic professionals. And now we see that there's really a widespread call and necessity to have these services integrated, and the work that C3S is doing with the CIS and getting possible even to have this constant regular stream flow of data and information is something that is a turning point there. Of course, the challenge is to bring this to the, I'm not worried that the multinational, to be honest, that the multinational company, when the times come and then they feel the need and pressure, we will be able to use climate services and to make the right decision. The challenge is there is to bring this type of awareness and tools to the small towns, to the SMEs, to really have it as a part of the, let's say, of every decision to be able to take into account climate change. Unfortunately, we will see that now the impact will become more and more evident and severe. If you think about planning infrastructure that spans, you know, the lifetime of infrastructure is some decades, depending on which. The moment now that span 2050 in terms of planning, it becomes more pressing and urgent. So I see that something is moving. We should speed up on every respect, including climate services, of course. We're a bit lagging behind, but I mean, in perspective, the thing is moving, maybe too slow.
Okay, that's great, Alessia. Thank you very much.